Sales is a conversation, not a presentation. That one piece we could unpack for hours. Sales is a conversation, not a presentation. No matter if you're e-commerce, if you are retail, if you are a rep in front of somebody, it does not matter. The more you can recognize it's a conversation, which means it's a two-way thing, and not a presentation. It's not, here, listen, I'm going to throw some things at you. That's more marketing than it is sales, by the way.
Yep.
Once you can start to understand that, you're in conversations all the time. And so when you can identify all these other areas where you're naturally having enrolling conversations and gaining buy-in, the more you recognize yourself in there and allow those to be opportunities to grow, the more they will spill over into your actual sales conversations.
Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started? Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm Selena Knight, your retail growth strategist, host of this podcast, and soon to be back up on the stage in Melbourne. Yes, we have just wrapped up Reed Trade Fairs, where we met some of you amazing retail and e-commerce store owners. We talked to so many people, and we're like going from one thing to the next. We've wrapped that up, and on the 5th and 6th of September, we are holding TRA Live. Yes, the Retail Academy Live. I am so excited. It has been years since we were able to hold a live event like this. 2 whole days, some amazing speakers, amazing people in the room. Like, the energy that I get from being at an event like this is just like, just my brain, it just explodes. Like, every fiber of my being explodes. Now, I know that you guys who are introverts maybe don't get that same kind of energy that I do, but I do know that everyone who comes to our live events always walks away with strategies that they can implement, new friends, and just a different perspective of looking at their business. And of course, when it comes to business, we are all about sales. And I know for a lot of you, sales is that thing that it's just difficult, right? It feels like it's not genuine. It can feel inauthentic. But retail and e-commerce is all about sales. That's the exact reason why we opened a business, even though we may not have thought about it at the same time. We're here to serve our customers and to sell them what they not want and what they need. And if you don't feel great at sales, which even in this podcast, you'll hear me talk about how I don't think I'm a great salesperson. If you don't feel comfortable being a salesperson, then it's something we have to understand. And it's something that I'm not going to say overcome, because today's episode with Lisa Dadd is all about how we don't have to overcome anything when it comes to sales. It's about how we understand how we sell and how we sell effectively, but also that we don't change our behavior to be, the gun salesperson. What we do is we can adapt to different circumstances, and Lisa gives us some great examples of how we do that. But if you really want to help your customers and help your family, like we talk about a whole bunch of different situations that are just everyday life situations. If you really want to help win over your customers in whatever way, shape or form they are, it is really about not even selling authentically, but understanding your sales language. So Lisa has a program that she works with, Soul Language, and she uses it for sales, and she helps it to get leaders and your salespeople to be aware of who they are at their core and how they work in business. So we see that there's always a way that you feel, and then there's a way that you project, like the way that you behave. So when we're selling a product, a service, an idea, whatever, you have to create buy-in from the people that you're talking to. And Soul Sales teaches you the art of creating the buy-in, but doing it in a way that works for you and works for your customer. I love this conversation. And you see, I get a little bit of training myself, but Lisa's great because she gives us examples of all the different types. And she's got on her website, lisadadd.com, she's got an overview of all 7 of the archetypes. And so you can go and have a look. We'll pop the link into the show notes and see which ones you are, but also see which ones your team are. Because for me, understanding how my team think, how they communicate, what they need from me and how they need me to deliver it is really important to get stuff done and to move the business forward. And I talk about this in the episode as well, but we do the Enneagram test because I need to know how the information I need to provide to my team and the way that they need it provided so that I can not change my behavior, but so I can be aware that going into this meeting, Joanne's going to ask me for facts. So I need to have a couple of facts ready or it's just not going to work, right? Nobody's going to move forward. Lisa gives us some great examples of how we can do that. So we're going to talk a lot about sales at the Retail Academy Live. If you have bought any of our programs, you will have received your golden ticket. Remember, you do have to reserve your seat. The room only fits a certain amount of people. And going from past experience, this event sells out, okay? So you need to make sure that if you have one of those golden tickets, you grab your seat. September 5th and 6th, what's that, a couple of weeks away now? In Melbourne, beautiful Melbourne. And when you log into the Retail Academy portal, you'll see all the information there. And for those of you who haven't bought any of our programs and you don't have a golden ticket, if by chance we have any space left over, or if we manage to squeeze a few extra seats in, we'll let you know and you can purchase a ticket. But for now, we reserve this as a special event for those people who are inside of our programs. Alrighty, let's get into today's episode with Lisa Dadd talking all about soul sales. Lisa, you have spent so many years getting sales right. And I mean, let's be honest, you have spent over 15 years in big corporate businesses in healthcare. You have done a lot of sales. You've done a lot of marketing. Pharmaceutically wise, I would never, as much as people who are in the pharmaceutical industry are excellent salespeople, I would never have thought that realm of sales would lead you to like this place where sales comes easy to anyone, regardless of whether they're a natural born salesperson or not. So tell us, how did you make that big jump from one side to the other?
You know, no one has ever asked me that question quite the way you have. And I would have to say it probably started with the fact that I never thought I was very good at sales. And I never really fit the mold of your typical pharmaceutical sales rep. And so back years...
I mean, look, people aren't watching this video, but you're very pretty. So, you know, if we're talking stereotypes,
Thank you.
Maybe that was your foot in the door.
Yeah, I would say, so here's the interesting connection. And I've only made a lot of these connections over the last several years. I'll completely admit this. I knew back in the day that something didn't quite fit with me. And I would say, though, I fit the personality in ways. When I first landed in pharmaceutical sales, I felt like they were my people. Like they were people that could easily talk with anybody and were really sort of kind of outgoing. And, you know, you go into a sales meeting and you had to plug your ears. I mean, we're so loud. Everybody wants to talk. And so I found in those regards, I felt like they were my people. However, once I was actually like in front of customers and how I was supposed to be following the equation and how I was supposed to be using the marketing materials to sell my customers, that's when I always felt really like out of my own skin.
Yeah, I can see that. I have several friends in the pharmaceutical sales realm, which is why I make the joke about being pretty, because they're all ridiculously attractive. They're female. And it's funny to me that they are not necessarily the life of the party, but they are the people who can talk to anyone. But they're not the slimy I don't know if it's because it's women, but they're not the slimy salespeople that you kind of associate when we're talking about something as full on as pharmaceutical sales. So can we just reverse back for a minute? And for people who don't know anybody in the pharmaceutical sales area, can you just tell them a little bit about, I guess, the pressure that you're under to hit specific targets and what your day would look like?
Yeah. I don't know that if it's any different than other sales in the matter that we have sales targets and we have objectives that we need to meet. What is very different, and I don't think people totally get or put together with sales reps that are in the pharmaceutical industry, is that we're not actually selling something that it's not a transactional sale. We're not, we don't go in with the medicine and the doctor buys it from us, right? So pharmaceutical sales is very relationship based. This is why you find them the life of the party, because what they need a sales rep that can create a really good relationship with the physicians. And really in that world, especially in Canada, it's like the buy-in that you were creating from the get-go was, how do I sell this doctor on giving me his time first, right? Because they're always busy. Like it's like, I have to beg for 30 seconds of this doctor's time. How can I create value really quickly that in his busy day, when he's got a waiting room full of patients, he thinks that there's value in talking to me for even 5 minutes. So we were selling the value we brought long before we ever sold a product, if that makes sense.
Yes, got it. But it is a high, like you said, it's the pressure is, and it happens in any sales market, but the pressure was just getting in front of the person.
Absolutely.
And the person who is very, very busy. And I think that definitely translates to retail and e-commerce, probably a little bit more to e-commerce. But if someone's walked in the door of your store, you got a chance of selling something to them, because I always make the analogy that I will never walk into a guitar shop because I have no musical ability and I have no need to buy anything in a music shop. So why the heck? You couldn't sell me anything because I'm not interested. But if someone's gone to the effort of walking into your store, even if they're just browsing, there's a chance they could sell something. E-commerce, probably a little bit different. Maybe they've clicked through from somewhere else and they have no idea what it is you really do or what you really sell. But that snap second, in your case, it might be 5, 10, 15 minutes. Getting that time is so important to building the relationship. And I think we forget about that when we're doing what you said, these transactional sales. And it can feel a little bit difficult to sell when somebody, like, their attention is quite fleeting, if that makes sense.
It does. And, as you're describing all of those, this is the common link that people forget between live, in-person selling, walking into a store type selling, e-commerce selling, online selling, through a sales landing page selling. In every single situation, we are creating an experience for the buyer. And we are building a bit of a relationship for the buyer. Now, how much time you have to do that is different in each of those environments.
In each time, yeah.
Right. It's like, how do I create a really positive experience and get buy-in to my value in 30 seconds before the person walks back out the door, or in a flash of them scrolling by ads on Facebook or whatever it might be. In every single environment, we can think of, okay, I need to be able to build a relationship and create an experience. And given my medium that I'm working in, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah. So people might find this strange, because I was in sales and still am in sales, let's be honest, but face-to-face sales for 7 or 8 years. And I never, ever have considered myself to be a good salesperson. I am very good at listening. I'm a problem solver. Like I'm a fixer. And so I see the which right. I guess kind of makes a good salesperson. I see the problem and I'm like, this is what will fix it. But I'm not very good at pushing people that little bit further, even though I know that this thing would be good for them.
Absolutely.
So I kind of go, I've got the experience. This would be great for you. And if there's any pushback, I'm like, okay.
Right.
Which is not a good salesperson.
Here's the piece that you're missing, actually. So one of the big pieces that most people are missing is they're not great listeners. So the fact that you're a great listener and you can automatically see the problem and you're a problem solver, right? So you've got some of the big pieces. The piece that's missing in there in terms of being a really good salesperson is realizing that it doesn't matter if you know what they need. They not only need to know what they need, but they also need to want it, right? So, in therapy,
Yes.
There's this phrase in therapy that says therapy is for those that want it, not those that need it. And sales is similar too. Sales is for people that want it, not those that need it. So when you're doing your process in your own mind and you're like, okay, I totally see what these people need and I'm just going to tell them what they need. You sometimes will be someone with your soul language. So I'm already seeing your soul language. Someone with your soul language you'll be too far ahead of them.
Oh, always. That's always a big joke is I am so far ahead and I'm going to guess, I'm going to cut in and say, only because I absolutely love doing all those NLP tests and I know what I am, is I don't know, you're going to tell me about soul languages, which I didn't even research it before because I wanted to hear it from you because I'm really excited about yet another kind of NLP thing.
More archetypes, yeah.
Archetypes. If there is a salesperson who sells with authority and knowledge, I'm guessing that is going to be me.
Yeah, there is one. Absolutely. And ironically, that you have a microphone in front of you right now because the approach of the authority is sage energy. And sages are also the great communicators and love a microphone. They love a stage. They love an audience. They need an echo. And so they love to communicate and express. That's sage energy. But the approach of sage is through authority. Okay. And I use the exact words of the sage. So I love that you haven't even looked this up.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. And let me discern the language for you because some people jump on a word and go, oh, that must be me too. So there's another energy. One of the archetypes is that of the scholar. And the scholar, you might think they sell with authority, but scholars sell really on their knowledge. So their expertise, because scholars are absorbing knowledge. They know so much information about everything. But a sage, which is more what you're describing, a sage is like they know some information, they see some insights, they take a little wisdom, and then that's the authority. It's sort of a blend of all those things. Whereas a scholar would be like, well, there's A and there's B, and if you put them side by side, B wins. There's no... It's very pragmatic. It's very neutral, right? They don't care which one you buy. They're just saying, I tested them and this is how they came out. So scholar energy is very neutral. Was what you're describing it authority. I'm like, nope, I've seen it. I see the vision for you. I'm there. And let me just tell you what it is.
Okay. So I reckon that there's a pretty good chance that one is me. Is this that I listen to a certain point and then when I think I'm right, I'm just like, I'm sorry, but I'm right.
Okay. Beautiful. Because here's the beautiful thing about soul language. And this is why I love helping people grow inside their comfort zones. This is your comfort zone, right? If your approach is naturally that of authority. So when you are in an energy when you're on sort of the negative side of the energy, so you're either stressed, overwhelmed, you're worried they're not going to buy, or you're like it's taking too long or whatever it is, your energy will come across as patronizing.
I can see that. Yeah.
Do you see that? Yeah.
The word I would use is bitchy, but yes.
Well, it's sort of oppressive in a way, right? So you think about this energy because it comes from the same place. The very same approach for you when you are in a really positive place, when you're really conscious and you're, good intention and you're grounded where you are, you're feeling really good, you will come across with a lot of authority. That same energy when you're not in a great place comes across patronizing or oppressive. And so this is where I start to work with people. And it's not just one or the other, right? There's a spectrum between that, right? But this is where we start to play with people when I can identify the approach that they're using. And that's your natural approach. Stick with it. We're not going to give you another one. We're not going to say, I think you should take the approach of the king. It's like, why? Your natural approach is authority. It's just, can we work with you to recognize when that's coming out in a powerfully authoritative way and when you're shutting people down?
Right. So what happens when people find themselves, anyone, who, when you get to that point, so as I'm clearly very self-aware, right? I can tell you my good parts and my shortcomings, but I don't know how to fix them. That's why I hired a sales manager.
Well, here's the thing. The first thing you have to recognize, you're not broken, so there's nothing to be fixed.
Okay.
That's a hard thing for people. Sounds really strange, but you're actually not broken. You don't need to be fixed. Because if you needed to be fixed, I'd be like, oh, you know what? You really should sell like a priest, because priest energy is very passionate. It's your typical archetypal salesperson who's like, that life of the party that you saw from the farmer reps. It's typically they have the approach of the priest, and guess who has the approach of the priest? I do.
That would be you.
Dominant energy king, but I have the approach of the priest, and we blend them together. And so it's like I'm assertively passionate, which is different than just the priest approach. But you're not broken. We're not fixing you. So once you can start to recognize what that energy feels like, and you can start to remember, and I can even take you back, you can think back to circumstances in your life, not even just sales, but it's circumstances where in a way you were selling, i.e. getting buy-in from someone. Say your whole family wanted to go somewhere else for dinner and you're trying to get their buy-in that you'd be better off going to a different place. You're in a sales environment, technically. It's like, how do you create value or buy-in from that place? When you recognize your own energy and go, oh, that situation, oh yeah, I don't know why. Everybody was just listening to me. I was just coming across so powerfully. I don't, this other time I thought I was showing them exactly what they needed, and I got the response I didn't want. So we go back into your actual life and start to get you feeling and identifying that. And so it's not about fixing it. It's almost like feedback. You can, in the moment, the more you get comfortable with working with this energy, in the moment, in a sales moment, you'll be able to catch yourself going a little bit to the side of like, uh-oh, I'm patronizing right now. Like they're literally getting shut down in front of me. And then you can pull yourself. And then there's, of course, techniques with sales training. And how do I get myself back to that place of authority, right? How do I come back to that?
All right. So which other, I see how, first of all, being aware of the type of salesperson you are, because everybody is, like you said, everybody is going to be a salesperson at some point. It could just be trying to convince your kids that you're having chicken for dinner tonight. Like,
absolutely. Or they need
every part of life.
They need to clean their room before company arrives, whatever it would be. Right.
So everybody is going to be in sales, and most of the people, it's funny, most of our sales pillar conversations generally revolve around how people don't like to sell. But then what are you doing in retail? Like, that's the whole job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is why I love when I talk to people. So this is a tweetable for everybody. Sales is a conversation, not a presentation. That one piece we could unpack for hours. Sales is a conversation, not a presentation. No matter if you're e-commerce, if you are retail, if you are a rep in front of somebody, it does not matter. The more you can recognize it's a conversation, which means it's a two-way thing, and not a presentation. It's not, here, listen, I'm going to throw some things at you. That's more marketing than it is sales, by the way.
Yep.
Once you can start to understand that, you're in conversations all the time. And so when you can identify all these other areas where you're naturally having enrolling conversations and gaining buy-in, the more you recognize yourself in there and allow those to be opportunities to grow, the more they will spill over into your actual sales conversations. So you don't have to wait till someone is giving you a credit card to recognize how well you are getting buy-in from people. And how are you getting alignment? So the other tweetable I have for everybody is, don't look for agreement. Look for alignment. So most people are looking for people to agree with them. They're not going to convince you that my service is perfect for you or my product is perfect for you. What if instead I was looking for where we aligned, where we both saw value, where your desires met what I actually have to be able to fit that? And so you don't even have to agree with me as to why it's the perfect product. You could have a totally different reason why it's the perfect product. As long as we align that it is the perfect product, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because in marketing, you're always trying to figure out what it is that your customer wants from you, or why do they come to your store? Why do they buy from you? And you're like, well, actually, it's more of a why. It's like, our values align. You have the things, generally speaking, that I want. You don't have to sell me into buying with you because I already like what you do.
Some people come, like even to a store, you think about a retail store. Some people go to certain stores because they like the atmosphere and they feel it just matches who they are and it matches their lifestyle and it feels good and they like to go there. Someone else might go to that same store because they think they have the best prices. Someone else might go to that store because, I don't know, someone they're trying to their role model goes there and they buy all those clothes. So they want, the worst thing we can do in any of those environments that we were talking about is assume that we know what that is. So if this is a conversation, all I have to do is get into a conversation with you so that I can start to understand what is valuable to you instead of try to guess. And then all I have to do is align what I offer to what you're valuing and what you really want.
Okay, so I want to come back and talk about how we do that with an e-commerce store. But we've talked a lot about me. Thank you very much. What are the other soul languages?
Absolutely. And so I want to also say that the soul language, when you do a full soul language report, there's 7 different aspects to it as well. So there's 7 archetypes, 7 aspects, which give you 49 different characteristics, and you have a blend of them. So I'm not going to go into all of those, but I just want you to know that you might have the approach of the sage, but your dominant energy could be something else. Okay. So you could have the dominant artist energy, but the approach of the sage. So in sales, I focus on approach because that's the way you go about things. Okay. So let's go through the other ones. So the helper energy. Helper energy is all about serving and nurturing. And so they're the people often behind the scenes, right? If you actually have a retail store, that's the person who's always willing to go clean up the back room, to fold the shirts that no one wants to fold. That they're the one that like, let me just, what do you need me to do? Kind of serving. Their approach is very calm and reserved. So they often don't look like the best salespeople. They can be the best salespeople when they think of, how do I support this customer in making a choice? So they don't have to be an authority. In fact, they don't want to be an authority. Don't try to make them an authority. If you've got a server on your team, let them serve through supporting people, and they blossom. Okay. Is this helpful? Is that an idea?
I was just thinking this is so ridiculously helpful because one of the things that we do in our business is we get everyone to take the Enneagram test.
Right.
And I think that's more for me than anybody because I need to know how to communicate with other people. I'm very dot pointy. And so we've just got a brand new sales manager on the team. She is amazing, but she is an Enneagram 5, which means she needs to know why, which drives me insane. And I literally was on a call with her yesterday. I'm like, when I spoke to you yesterday, did I sound really bitchy? And she said, no. And I went, okay. Well, if I did, I didn't mean it to be like that. And then the Enneagram came back and I was like, right. So now I know when I talk to her, she needs to know why. And so flipping all of that back to these sales languages is if you know how somebody sells, you're not pushing them into an environment where they're going to go backwards rather than forwards. You're pushing them into,
Absolutely.
And this is where kind of that sales training can fall down if you're expecting everyone to be the priest that has the big high energy.
Yeah, and there's really 2 archetypes I think are traditional sales. So you think of the warrior energy can also be typical sales, especially like a sales rep in a pharma job, for example, because their approach is stamina, perseverance. So anything that requires like loyalty for customers, you want warriors because they will do the same thing day in and day out and day in and day out, and they don't care. They're really driven by results. They want to win. They want to conquer. So, and I remember when I was managing a sales rep team in pharma, I had two warriors. They always were number 1 in sales because that was they had a goal and they were meeting that goal and they were doing whatever it took to get to that. That's warrior energy. They just action towards winning, like they want a victory. So if you have a retail store and e-commerce, if you have someone in a retail store and you've got a contest and it's like, who's going to have the most sales? Like your warriors are going to like trample everybody because they'll do twice as many transactions an hour than anybody else. And they're on it to win it. And that will drive them. That is not the same inspiration you need if you've got, say, a scholar on your team or an artist. So artist energy is very innovative and creative. And an artist's approach is very cautious. So it's not necessarily something you would see as a salesperson, but they'll see problems that other people won't. But when they use their creative, innovative approach to things, then customers are like, oh, no one's ever offered.
I never thought of it like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't just grab a shirt off the rack. They say, you know what, if you're going to get that shirt, it would look much better with this jacket and this belt, and then throw this out all together. In fact, don't even button it up, tie it this way. Like, who thought of that? Right? Like it's very different. It's a very different way of looking at things, right? Very creative. So but you don't want to force your just like you saying, Sage, it's like, how do I communicate with this person? It's great to know what her communication style is, but not to change yours into hers. So this is what we teach in sales, is that you don't want your sales reps understanding exactly their approach and then changing it for every different customer. It's not about changing your approach. It's about identifying different energies in your customers and recognizing what they need, but still using your own approach to get to what they need.
I was going to say, that sounds confusing. Can we dig into that a little bit more? So for everybody who's listening, when you go and do the test, you've worked out which one of these dominants you are, and potentially you've probably got some very different people on your team. If you're an e-commerce business, you may not have what we would call traditionally salespeople, but you're going to have different people on your team who you have to get that buy-in from when making decisions. Our customers are going to be very different as well. They're going to be looking for different things. So you're saying we kind of adapt it, but we don't change it. What does that look like?
No, you should come from your own approach. So let me give you the approach of the king, because that's my, and priest approach. But the dominant energy of the king is leadership. So people will notice that kings are often in leadership roles. They are very directive. They provide direction. People are like, that's the person that's going to take me from A to B, right? That's why I train more than I coach. It's like, you want to know what to do? Yeah, we do this. But the approach of the king is very assertive, right? So you can even hear my assertion when I speak. So if I've got somebody in front of me and I go, okay, well, this is a person who, say they're a scholar. Scholars love information and love details, and they get wrapped up in all the details, and they want to know all the whys and the whats, and like, wait a second, back up. We need to fill all the charts and the pro and con list. And like, no, for me as a king, my king's like, nope, let's move on. Let's be fast. Let's be efficient. Here's the best approach. Go. I don't need all the information. But when I'm working with a scholar, I don't go into full detail mode. I'm going to be very assertive about the fact that I say, what is the information you need the most that's going to help you make the quickest decision? Oh, well, it would be this. Great. So I allow them, I know that they want a lot of information. They want a lot of details. I still use my assertive approach to say, what's really missing for you in this moment that we can get you so we can move forward? You see, my approach isn't changed. But if I'm working with an artist, again, the artist, what I know is an artist who has this ability, the artist needs to almost say no before they can say yes. They're breaking down the problem before they can create. And so again, as a king, I'm still assertively trying to figure out, like, if I want to move a project forward, I'm going to find out exactly what does this artist energy need for them. And in that moment, it's like, hey, what do they need to move forward? But it's going to be different, because it's like, what are you creating right now? What space do you need? Like, who else do you need to feed into this?
I feel like that's probably a question you would ask a lot, is what do you need from me to move forward?
Absolutely. Right. So it works with everyone, as long as I'm identifying that I don't expect this scholar to want me to inspire them. They're going to want information. Now, the priest energy is very inspired. They're all about inspiration. So I'm going to say to them, what's inspiring you about this right now? You see, what do you find most inspiring about this offer? What's most inspiring to you? See, again, my approach is still assertive. I go right at it. Okay. Yes. And I don't need to change that. And I have passion and charisma. That's the approach of the priest, right? So I can kind of blend the two, but it doesn't make sense if I try to be cautious. And I can role play all of them because I'm a trainer. But when I try to role play the artist's approach with caution, I have a hard time, because it's just not mine. Not mine at all. But the artist is more like looking for the problems. Well, what if this happens? What are we going to need to do? Like, it's like they're seeing all the problems, and that's just not, I see all the possibilities. That's king energy.
Right. Okay. I'm with you. And the other stuff just drags me down. But like you said, if you're aware of how other people are taking in that information and what they need to move forward, the business is only going to grow quicker, because you're not butting those heads like constantly, and everybody's getting a little bit of what they need in the process.
Absolutely. And when everybody starts communicating from their own approach, it feels the easiest for everybody. So if you and I are communicating, and you're in your dominant approach and I'm in my dominant approach, they're not competing with each other. It's actually, it feels natural, because it is natural. It's coming out of you, and it's like, oh yeah, you do that very well. If you're trying to all of a sudden be the scholar, I'm like, I don't know why I don't really like.
There's that disconnect, isn't there? There's like, and from a customer's point of view, they're kind of like, Are you just trying to sell me?
Are you trying to sell me? And so what happens is all sales trainings, most sales trainings programs teach people to either sell like warriors or sell like priests. And if you're not in that energy yourself, it feels awkward that you're doing what you were told. And the other person's like, okay, this is a little weird. Like, this doesn't feel like it matches. And it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. I think you said there were 7, right? And I'm going to go with sage, king, priest, scholar, artist.
Yeah. Warrior.
Yeah.
And helper.
Oh, helper. Yeah. So we've kind of covered all of them. That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's always a blend. I want who's out there going, well, Lisa, I feel like I cover a few of those. You probably do because your whole profile, like I said, I'm dominant king and I have priest and artist as my wings. So it's a whole thing we don't have to get into. But I just want people to recognize if they say, oh, I feel like I'm a little bit of all of those. Probably you are a little bit. And there's also a possibility that you just think you are because you've been trained a certain way or you've lived in a household, like some people think their helper energy is just because their mom was a helper and it just, they grew up in that environment. And then they start to go, oh, right. It feels so much better when I fall into my saginess than when I try to be a helper.
Great. Okay. So once we have worked out what we do and we've worked out how we sell and that we're not going to change the way we sell, we're going to adapt the way we sell. I want to know how, apart from the fact that we have to communicate with the people on our team and, even suppliers and whatnot, for people who are in e-commerce, because I feel like retail is a lot easier to give examples for, but for people who are in e-commerce who go, but I never actually really talk to my customers, apart from all the DMs that I get or the emails that I get or the customer support tickets, how do we take all of this and use it to grow our business?
Okay. So you're going to need marketing and sales. I'll just put that out there right now. And I always say marketing is about you and sales is about your client. So if we can remember that and we add in sales as the conversation. So I would say this isn't answering all the marketing questions because I focus on the sales part and then the marketing part. Part is do people know you exist? That's marketing. Do they know you exist? Do they know what you sell? That's marketing. Then when you go into your e-commerce site, the question is, what is the conversation you're having with your potential buyers? I say, but I'm not talking to them, Lisa. Right. But you are, right? Like, what is the energy of the e-commerce site? What are the types of language you're using? What is the feeling of the navigation? What is my experience when I'm in there? And are you prompting me? And you can prompt. It's the way you design your site, of course, and the difference and who you're sort of targeting. What are you kind of bringing your client into? How are you building buy-in before they even click buy? Now, it's not as straightforward, but it's definitely translatable. If I look at your site and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. I have like no idea what they stand for, who they are. I don't get a feeling. It's kind of all over the place. It's very busy. I'm confused and I'm going to go to someone else's site.
I've got 2 great examples. Sorry, you just said that. And 2 things just popped into my head at the same time. That this is in the kind of health, fitness, supplements area. The first one is a brand called Onnit. It's in the US. And I haven't been to their website for a while, but their whole brand is the warrior. It's like, you can do it, smash through it, dark colors, like steel, all the things. And then here in Australia, we have a vitamin brand. They only sell like 3 things, and it's called Mr. Jones. It's targeted at women who, all of their branding is about, you're tired even though you've had a lot of sleep, but everything is crisp, white, like tiny little bottle on giant page of white space. Whereas Onnit, who probably sell a version of the exact same thing, is all dark with steel and barbed wire. So very, very different energies. And they sell very differently.
They sell very differently. So they're in a different conversation with their clients. If you think about that. So you think about the Onnit and you can do this. They're literally like, what do you really want? How bad do you want it? When do you want it? Don't you want it quicker? And they go, yes, I want it faster. I want it harder. I want the higher degree. Like that's what the customer, see how the customer's in a conversation with them is like, absolutely. So it's not always just the branding. It becomes a little bit of the language, especially if you're using sales pages and things like that. And so it's, I always think it's like, assume that the person is going to be able to answer your question because it's kind of like, what would your life look like if you got results 10 times faster than you're currently getting them? See, now there's a question. You don't need them to answer it, but you're still in a conversation because now your thing goes, oh, wait a second. My life would be so much better. It would look like this. Like I don't wait for the brand to answer the question for me. I can answer for myself. And eventually that's leading me to the buy button.
Yeah. Versus the other brand, which you just go there and you instantly feel calmer. And that's what they're targeting. They're like, do you want to feel calm during your day? Do you want to have the energy to do things? Do you want to stop feeling like you haven't slept for the last 6 months? You want all that negative space.
Absolutely. And they do a beautiful job of that. And what I would say on top of that, what you can always take it to the next level, depending on the way your site's created, is you can always say, is there a point where we don't fill the answer in for them? Because a lot of the basic sales, like traditionally, be like, don't you want to sleep more? Don't you want this? Don't you want that? But when you open up the expanse to say, imagine what life would look like if you had 2 more hours of sleep a night. That's it. I don't even have to tell you what that would mean for you. So I don't go, when you feel better, when you eat better, when your dog like you better. No, I don't know what that is. I don't need it. I just need to leave that out there in the ethers and say, what would that feel like for you? And their clients are going to go, oh, 2 hours more of sleep? Like I have a sister right now who's not sleeping. I mean, she's going to fill that in and push by, right? So that's what I mean by open a conversation with your sales, right? Marketing, set the stage, but sales opens the conversation where people feel like they're part of the equation. Yeah.
You just mentioned the dog in there, and it was just a throwaway line, but I think it's the perfect segue to, you told me that you think your dog is better at sales than most salespeople that you meet.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little, first of all, what kind of dog is it?
Yeah. So I will say I have a yellow lab right now named Samson, and I love him. Mm-hmm. And I really use this line referring to the last yellow lab that I had named Leo. And, rest his little soul. He was the four-legged salesman, the four-legged CEO. He was so enrolling. This is a dog who could get anybody to play with him. He is so true to who he was. He was like quintessential lab. He swam for hours. He fetched for hours. He loved it. But he would come and like the bum would start wagging. He would just like create this experience. And I'd watch people in the park because he'd go over to them and drop the ball in front of their feet and look up at them, right? And people would be like, what's with this? Who's this dog? Where does he belong? And they would just kind of, you could tell they were kind of ignoring. He'd sit there, he'd turn his little head and he'd get up and he'd wiggle his little bum. And he's literally inviting them to say, come play with me. It's super fun. Just with his own energy and being him. He was so, dogs, animals in general, like they don't have that piece where it's like, okay, I got to sell this person on playing fetch with me. How do I do it? They're just like, hey,
this is me.
This is me, right? Like dogs will look at it, roll over on their belly. Guess what? You scratch their belly. They are so enrolling. Yeah. They're so enrolling by their energy. And that's pure energy.
I have 2 greyhounds. One, they're like, one is light colored, one is dark colored. They're completely opposite. But the dark colored one is called Cav. And greyhounds are kind of hand level. Like if you've got your hands down by your sides, that's perfect greyhound patting level. And at the park every single day, he will literally walk up and stick his head underneath people's hands and then lean against them. Like you have no choice but to pat me because you just have to move your hand. I'm here. And he will just get pats from anybody because like you said, he's a complete salesperson. Look, I'm here. It's everything you need right here.
But what's the best part about it is that it's so authentic and it's so true to their energy. That's why it works. It's not like, oh, I feel like I was forced to pet this dog. It was just like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even resist him. He just was so irresistible, right? And that's what we're talking about here is that it's like people with priest energy are very inspiring and always have a great story to tell. But if that's not you, don't try to tell people a story and try to inspire them. That's not you. So don't do that. It's like the dog. The dog's wagging his tail because he's just like, I'm just happy. I'm not doing it because I think if I wag my tail, you're going to throw the ball. I'm just happy. Yeah.
You need this as much as me.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. I joke with the four-legged salesman, but I do think they're very good at enrolling. They're also very good at just being who they are. And so that's kind of the biggest message is, it sounds like just be you is I go deeper than be authentic because as we've talked about already, that energy, there's extremes to it. So we can start to recognize exactly who we are. And when are we in that part of our energy? That's super enrolling. That puts people just naturally at ease.
Yeah. And I think now that people have heard you speak, they'll be in those positions and those times when the sale came easy, like you said, whether it's telling your kids to clean up their room or it is in that physical sales role, if they're aware enough to say, what was I doing or what was I thinking or how was I being at this point? How was I feeling at this point? Then you can come back and say, okay, that's because, or this is how I utilize this more. But also not everybody is the same as me. So I need to understand the different ways that I connect with people and how can I adapt, not change, to make sure that they're getting what they want or need and I'm fulfilling my part of the role as well.
And that's the whole art and the training. I mean, that's why I train people on sales. Otherwise, I could just give people labels all day long. It's not giving you a label. Like even if you are a Sage Energy, that doesn't really tell you anything unless we work with it. So that's why we do training, to go deeper into that. You said you do Enneagram, so you've got a bit of a level of an awareness of things. Great. It just gives you another level of that. And how do we work with it instead of against it? Remember, I said, you're not broken. Nobody's broken out there. Hey, and nobody's broken. Even if your sales are like a fraction of what you know they could be, you're not broken. You just haven't really remembered or appreciated the very thing, the very little piece of you, the spark that is the thing that would skyrocket your success. That's what the training is all about, is getting into that.
I know that this is a request we get a lot of inside of Scale Your Store and our other groups is, do you have a great sales trainer? And realistically, as the business owner, all you're thinking is, I need to make sure we have more conversions and a higher average order value. I do believe that if people understand this, they'll get that, but in a way that embraces whatever your brand wants to do to connect. So if people want to reach out to you and get some sales training, where can they find you? And do you have the test on your site as well?
I don't have the test on my site, and I'll tell you why. Because it can be very misleading to just do a quick test and say, oh, I have Sage. Okay, I'm good to go. I know I'm this. And so I don't do just tests. I work with people with that information. So easiest way, if they want to reach out, they can go to lisadad.com. What is on the site, there's a free sheet there that will give you all 7 archetypes and a little description about how they sell. So they'll give you, if anybody's just sort of curious, but if you're like, oh, but Lisa, I think I know which one I am, but I actually want to use this. I want to do the training. I want to get better at it. Give me a call. We'll have a conversation about whether it makes sense or not for where you're at.
Can you help with the whole team? Like, is there a certain number of people?
No, absolutely. We can do the whole team. And what we do then is we do the whole team's soul language, and we understand each other's. And the best part about that, when I do group trainings, is so you can see, oh, the person across from you, they're a scholar. Oh, right. Of course. That's why, I want them to get all inspired about something and they're super neutral about it. That totally makes sense.
Doesn't that just make a difference? Just knowing that, to me, makes such a big difference, because not that I can keep myself in check, but I ask that same question you do, is what do you need from me to get to, to move forward, to get past this? Like, what's my part of this equation? Because that's not where I want to go. So just tell me what you need from me and we can move on.
Yeah. I'll be unattached to what you're going to say. Absolutely. And it also is, if you have a team and you have an opportunity to pass off different clients or different, and when I say clients, I don't just mean customers. I could mean, say you're trying to get someone to invest in your business and it's a sell to get someone to bring a huge investment into your company. Once you start to understand that person, you might move different people into different roles as to, you know what, we need so-and-so here because they're going to know all the facts and figures that this person really needs right now. So that's where you start using your team together, and you start, especially if you have anybody who's doing anything like account type selling stuff. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Well, we've just hired a sales manager and we're building out our sales processes. So we might be in contact very soon when we start bringing on new people.
Absolutely. So have a quick conversation about them, the archetypes with anyone. If you want to reach out directly, Lisa at lisadad.com at DADD. And we'll see if it makes sense.
Fabulous. We'll put all those links to the show notes, and you've got the overview of all the archetypes there. And Lisa at lisadad.com. And I'm sure we can connect with you on LinkedIn and all the certain places. We'll put all those into the show notes. Thank you so much. I love talking about this stuff, clearly, but I just find it's because it's so useful.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, King Energy is all about action. So to me, if it's not useful, let's not talk about it.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelinaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.